right. Hello there, everybody. How's everyone doing today? Are you reading me loud and clear? I'm glad to see we've got some people waiting. I didn't even make a big announcement or anything. I just, yesterday I posted the live video and people found out about it. Look at that. We've got people already tuning in here. Jack Silver, thank you so much for the donation. I put a goal in for today, 10 super chats of any value. And if we get to all 10, oh my gosh, Jack. Now that's cheating, Jack. Splitting it into two like that. But I do appreciate it. Great, wonderful. If we get to 10, we will do this social media type of live stream again. All right? I'm going to see how you like it. We do the archaeology news videos every month, and you like that. But I'm going to try something a little bit different today. We're just going to see what's going on, mainly here on X. We're going to look and see what people are posting about, and I'm picked out some of the more wacky posts because that's more interesting, right? That's what we're going to do today. All right, are my lips matching with my mouth? I hope so. Doing all this myself, and I just want to make sure I've got it going right. Hi there, Mandy. How you doing? All right, good to see you. Say hello, so I know you're alive and well, and you're here with us. And while you're doing that, I'm gonna pull up my first. Let's see. I've got the calendar up here. How do I get out of the calendar? We want to go to this. Okay, here we go. All right. Sarina77, hi from Plymouth. As ancient as y'all get in USA. That's true. Yes. Good old Plymouth Rock. All right, this one... Brian is actually one of the people who follows me, so I hope he doesn't mind here. Brian Ramella, I think he says Ramelli or something like that. I'm not sure. But from Guizhou, China. These are just naturally occurring geological formations, government archaeologists. We get this a lot, don't we, folks? We get this a lot, where people point at things that kind of look like pyramids, and they're like, how can people say these are not pyramids? Now, of course, you're looking at it from this angle. Looks like a couple of pyramids there, doesn't it? Kinda, sorta. As long as you don't get too close or look at it from all angles. Some of them are very pyramid-like. Absolutely, no doubt about that. But the problem is, they are geological formations. This happens a lot where there are naturally made objects. But, this the average person surfing the internet, they don't know much about geology. And they see these things and they're like, oh, these must be, magnificent structures that were built by a lost civilization. And we get that in, there are other pyramids besides the ones in Guizhou, so-called pyramids. But I hate to break it to you, everybody, these are geological formations. All right, has nothing to do with the government paying archaeologists to say that they're not, because, why would the Chinese government ever want anyone to discover they have pyramids? That would make them, give them too much glory. They're humble. They want to diminish any of these great discoveries. Makes no sense, right? But here we have geological formations. These are karst formations. I have actually here an article, China's pyramid-shaped mountains spark conspiracy theories, where they interview a geologist. You can see some more images here. And you know what? Look in the background here in this photo. Look at them all. There are hundreds and hundreds of them. Okay? Now, are these all pyramids? No, they're not. In fact, they're all natural formations. According to Zhou Quen, professor at Guizhou Normal University. This is right there in town. They are a typical example of karst terrain with a history of around 200 million years. Back when the county was still a shallow sea, minerals began dissolving in the water and recrystallizing as dolomite, the main component of today's pyramids. Yeah, so this is a natural formation. And I know there are people like they just want to believe they're pyramids, but you got to go with what the geologists say. And these are not just Chinese geologists, because did you know foreigners can come and work in China? There are actually foreign geologists who work in Guizhou as well. You can go there and see for yourself. All right? But no, people want to look at photos on the internet and come up with all kinds of theories. I also have a scientific paper here that I found about the mountains and the caves, right? It says right here, the formation of karst in Guizhou emerged from a plate group during the Proterozoic to the Quaternary period, mainly as shallow marine carbonate deposits. The underground karst landscape mainly includes underground rivers, caves, and rifts. The rocks are mainly composed of carbonate rock, which emerged during the Cambrian, Devonian, Carboniferous, Permian, and Triassic periods. Okay, you get the idea. This is just the science. But of course, posts like these get, well, this only got 3,500 likes, but you get the idea. All right. What are your thoughts on that? I want to hear from you guys too. So, any thoughts on the Guizhou pyramids? Oh, we've got a lot of comments here. Okay, I missed all these. John and Mandy go RVing says, looking forward to another great video from the one and only Dr. Miano. Thanks for the suggestion about reading the book, The Ancient Maya. I've learned so much more about the Maya as a result. Hey, cool. All right, I'm glad to hear that. John, I'm assuming. Hello from Carlisle, PA. Are my eyes deceiving me? It looks like AI generated to me. No, those are not AI generated photos. Sharon, thank you so much for the super chat. We're up to 3 now. All right. It's telling me people are liking this idea. I feel that kind of naivete is actually similar to the naivete to which you repeated right-wing conspiracies about Pomo. Pomo? I'm kind of dense. My dear mother visits me in Arizona and thinks the Hohokam built the mountains. Fun ensues. Okay, so you know exactly what we're talking about. Yeah. Oh, Glenn showed up. Glenn, I forgot to ask you to moderate, but if you can moderate today, I'd really appreciate it. Yeah. And everybody, if you do appreciate this channel and you want to help out, super chat would be very much appreciated. Up to you. But we got some cool things to talk about today. Hi from Sweden, says Carl. Where I grew up, there was a little hill that looked like a volcano from one angle. It was the remnant of a ridge made by a prehistoric glacier. Yeah, the one I always think about is in Saudi Arabia, how they have, or is it in Jordan? It might be in Jordan, but anyway, it looks like there was a cut straight down the rock, and it's perfectly straight. And the geologists say it's a natural formation, but of course, there are many people on the internet who are like, no way, it was cut by a massive saw, but that's how people like to think. Mandy says, I'll mod for you. My name looks great in blue. Mandy, you can help Glenn out. I don't mind. Oh, but I think I have to give you moderator privileges. Let's see if I can do that. Add as moderator. Standard moderator. There you go, Mandy. Sean, thank you so much for the super chat. Oh, we're really going up in the super chats. We'll probably get to 10 pretty quickly. Maybe I should have made the goal higher. All right. Anyway, let's look at another one here. This one from Mina Visuals. In ancient Egyptian times, women were seen and honored as higher and holier than a man. The woman is the mother of all, giving life and teaching. The ancients believed that when a man achieves a great deal of knowledge, spirituality, and power, he would be allowed to wear a long hair wig to symbolize that he had reached a certain level equal to a woman. As the two come together, she holds her man, giving him strength and protection. There's a saying that continues to float today, behind every successful man, there's a strong woman. Now, I don't mind the sentiment, of course, very good sentiment, behind every successful man, there's a strong woman. I like that. But it doesn't understand Egypt very well. Now, just to give you an idea, like the Menkaure statue here with his wife, Khmer Nebti, usually the interpretation is that her hands are there to support her husband, but the fact that she is behind him, okay, is basically saying that, she is there to help him because he is the one who's in charge. He's the king, right? But, I guess it's open to interpretation. The only thing is, there's absolutely no evidence that men wore long wigs when they got to a point where it showed that they were as great as a woman, right? In other words, Mina Visuals is implying that the women were above the men, and the men could only reach equality after they got to a certain point. But there's nothing in Egyptian sources that say anything like that, or that say that women are holier than men, or something like that. Now, I will say this: women in ancient Egypt had more rights than any other ancient culture. All right, at the time. So if you were a woman, you'd want to live in Egypt. Okay, they had many of the same legal rights and so forth, but it still was not total equality because they didn't like women as rulers. All right, and there were some cultural limitations to what a woman could do. All right, so it wasn't completely like men and women are equal. Now, if you want to know more about ancient women in Egypt, there are some works you can look at. So, for example, this is a very in-depth one, and it's kind of expensive. But anyway, if you want to get it, it's called Women in Ancient Egypt. You can get it at the library, maybe interlibrary loan or something like that. And it's a collection of essays by scholars on women in Egypt. Lots of great information about them here. Another one that's cheaper and not as in-depth, but still good, is Women in Ancient Egypt by Gay Robbins. And then, of course, there's just an article here on women in ancient Egypt on the worldhistory.org website. But I don't think it was written by an Egyptologist, but somebody knows ancient history. But got some good information there. But yeah, this post is not very historically accurate. All right. Here's one I posted. Just to get people's dander up. Okay? So it shows the evolution of the Egyptian pyramid, from the simple tombs. These are royal tombs, building its way up to a pyramid. And I put in the George Orwell quote. Actually, turns out, see, even I make mistakes, historical mistakes. George Orwell did not say this. It's all over the internet that George Orwell said this, but they cannot find this quote in any of his writings. Maybe he told it to one of his friends and somehow got repeated, or I don't know what. It probably was made up by somebody. But anyway, it's a quote you see going around. But I put, the most effective way to destroy people is to deny and obliterate their own understanding of their history. And we got some comments after I posted it. I expected this because I kind of was expecting it to rise out of people, because usually the conspiracy theorists talk about how it's the archaeologists who are denying the existence of lost civilizations and things like that. But I wanted to kind of make the point that it's actually more the other way around. Yeah. What happens, think about it, right? There are people who go around the world, YouTubers and so on, okay? People who write books. They go around the world, especially Asia, Africa, and Central and South America. North America, too, when we're talking about indigenous cultures. And they will look for anything they can find. Anything they can find. Buildings, artifacts, what have you, and they will say, well, actually, the people here did not make this. No, it comes from a lost civilization from long before this, And this is denying people their own understanding of history, isn't it? So that's why I put it up. So I can't go through all the comments here. Bjorn corrected me about that not being a George Orwell quote, though. Um, but let's look at this one here. This seems tone deaf. So Kyle here thinks I made a tone deaf. I posted a tone deaf meme. There's some kind of hypocrisy here or something like that. What do you think, people in the chat? Do you think by posting this I was being tone deaf? I'm not looking for validation, but if you really think that maybe I was being tone deaf, I want to hear about it. Do you have any thoughts on this? Master Biggie, thank you so much for the super chat. $50. Oh, thank you so much. Keep up the good work, Dr. Miano. I'd love to see more streams like this. All right. You are sending me a message, everybody. You're sending me a message that this is the kind of thing you want. Dr. Miano, sorry if you mentioned it. I just got here, but how do you feel about Jean-Pierre Houdin's internal ramp theory? I did not mention that yet, Granny. But I think there are a number of different theories about how the Great Pyramid or the pyramids were constructed and how, ramps are usually what is believed to have been used, but how the ramps were set up and all that is just a matter of debate. We don't really know. There's not enough remaining evidence to show us exactly. There is enough evidence to show that they probably did use ramps because they've used them elsewhere, but as far as exactly how it's done, there's still debate about it. So the jury's out, and as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to withhold judgment on that as well. But I certainly think Houdin's ideas are worthy of consideration. Yeah. All right. Any thoughts on this particular meme? I guess you don't really have much to say about it. So I got into a little discussion with Kyle. So I said, how so? How do you think it's tone deaf? Right? And he said, because George Orwell is often cited by skeptics, I think he means skeptics of government and authority. So, because my implication is that I'm talking about just the average people on the internet, right? But George Orwell was talking about skeptics of government and authority. Are you suggesting the obfuscation of our past is real, not a conspiracy? Of course, that quote sounds very conspiratorial, doesn't it? So he's asking me if I think there's a conspiracy. So I said, yes. When people deny and obliterate Egyptian history, for example, such as the gradual evolution of pyramid technology, they destroy the Egyptian people. So I dug in. I said, I'm standing by my statement here. But what do you think about that point? That, wait a minute, this is supposed to be about authorities lying and destroying history, not about the average person doing that. The average person is not to be, what threat are they, right? Any thoughts about that? Do you think I'm being too hard on the average dude? What are your thoughts on that? Let's see. So far, nobody has said anything about it, okay? At least coming through to me. Maybe a little of a delay here, but okay, I guess I guess you don't really have a ton of thoughts. Maybe most of the people here are already agreeing with me. I don't know. I was hoping for more people supporting Kyle. All right, he says, to me, the idea that pyramids gradually evolved from small pyramids to big pyramids, Khufus, isn't exactly solid science. It's theory based on what evidence exists today, which is susceptible to survivorship bias after 4,000 years. I think a concept of inheritance isn't foreign to ancient Egyptians. In the topic of smaller artifacts, it's clearly recognized that softer stone vases were imitations of older, harder vases. He's getting into the vases here. And I don't think I'm harming anyone's history by presenting this argument. Okay, so I wasn't talking about vases, of course. I was talking about the pyramids, all right? And just the overall idea of people denying that the people who lived there made those things, okay? Or at least the people who live there now. So I can understand what he's saying, but the thing is, all right, and I mentioned this a little bit later. I'm not going to read every comment. This that you see in the image, this development of royal tombs, the dating of these is solid, right? We have scientific dating, many converging lines of evidence as to when these various tomb types first appeared, and they do, in fact, work their way up to the pyramid, all right, the actual pyramid. So the order is there, right? There was a gradual development. Now, if you want to bring in these ideas, well, maybe they inherited it from somebody else. These are all possibilities based on your feelings, not based on data or facts. It's just based on, well, I don't want to believe that, or I have my doubts about that, or there are other possibilities. Yeah, there are other possibilities, but what's your reason for that? Well, it just seems to me like, it's like, that's a possibility that I like. It appeals to me. They're just appealing to feelings, That's my take on it anyway. Am I being too harsh on them? I don't know. But it does seem to be based on their own personal feelings about what they think would be better to believe. They point to things like, well, you don't know everything. You have open questions. Yeah, we have open questions about certain things. But other things are, they're more solid. And the default position should be that, there it is. We've dated it. This is from the culture of that time. That's the default position, unless something comes around that should change our minds. But offering another possibility isn't changing anyone's minds. It's just saying, well, what if it's this? Okay, well, show us your evidence for that. Well, I'm just saying it's a possibility. See, but denying people their own understanding of history based on your personal feelings isn't enough to justify that act, I think. Okay, it isn't enough to justify that act. All right. No, you didn't make it. Well, how do you know? Well, it just makes sense to me personally. I just think that's a bad form. Okay, that's my thought on it. You can either agree or disagree. We got another super chat from King D Ho. Thank you. I'm traveling, but thanks for all you do. Join the Potter party, I guess, please, and keep this channel going strong. Talk to you later, Derek. Thank you, Derek. Appreciate it very much. Some people just don't like accepting the word of experts, says Glenn. I'd rather 500 of these tone-deaf memes than one single Deftones meme. Thank you, Mandy. Yeah. Remember the saying, drugs are for people who can't handle reality? Well, conspiracy theories are for people who can't. All right, I'm preaching to the choir, I think, here. If he is citing survivorship bias, then isn't he kind of thinking we're somehow missing a bunch of complete pyramids from the same time as the older mastabas? Yeah, another thing I was thinking of about that is, okay, they want to separate the Great Pyramid out, right? It's always about the Great Pyramid. You notice this? They're separating the Great Pyramid out. Well, this is different. They might have built those other pyramids, but they didn't build the best one. Well, what about the one right next to it? The Khafra Pyramid, right? It's almost the same size. Now, maybe some of them might say, well, I don't think the Khafra Pyramid was built by them either. But they never talk about it, right? They're measuring the Great Pyramid. They're talking about all its angles and everything and doing math to try to show you that, it couldn't have been made by the Egyptians. They never do that with the Khafra Pyramid. Why not? Well, because they can't find any good numbers in it, okay? And yet, here we have a pyramid right next to it that's built almost the same way. And what about the one next to that? The Menkaure Pyramid. What about that one? Did the Egyptians make that? Well, yeah, that's a smaller one. They probably made that. Well, if they can make that pyramid using the same materials, what, you just don't think they can make the Great Pyramid because it's bigger? What about the Red Pyramid? Not even a Giza. Snefru's Pyramid, the Red Pyramid, another great pyramid made out of stone. What about that one? Did they make that one? This idea of separating out objects from a group, right? You have a group of objects in one place made very similarly, and they'll pull out the ones that they think are the best, and they'll say, oh, this is a different culture. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I don't think, anyway. I didn't come here to totally make fun of people. That's just my thoughts on the matter. Rad, thank you so much for the donation. Appreciate it. Thank you. Meat Eater says, Dr. Miano, do you perhaps study philosophy? Been watching your awesome content for months, and I think you sound not just like a historian, but also a great orator and philosopher. I'm interested in philosophy, but I don't really know I haven't read a lot of the books or anything. I just like to think through things, But yeah, I some people don't like that, because I'll make a video and I'll be like, well, now let's think about this, everybody. If this, what about this? And like that. And they're just like, just give me the facts. I just want the evidence, okay? Just give me the facts. Whereas sometimes I'll think about the logic, right? Yeah. Also, hiding behind the I'm just asking questions statement, to me, invalidates your argument and authority. That happens a lot, doesn't it, Jason? I think it's based more so on the observation of the engineering. It is difficult to reconcile the supermassive statue carving using the accepted explanation. Okay, I can understand that. But then, why are, there are two types of people. There are the people that will try to find another way that they could make a statue. And they'll say, I don't like this explanation. I'm going to come up with another explanation. And then there are people who just say, well, I don't know how it was made, but the Egyptians definitely didn't do it. And I think that second position is less defensible. All right, let's see what else we got. Constellation Pegasus, thank you so much for the super chat. We already got 7 out of the 10. We're almost to our goal. I think people are liking this. Any teaser theory on why mathematics came before oral traditions? History lost to us because of this. I don't think that that's true. I think oral traditions probably came first. But, of course, you have to have some basic math, right? You have to have some basic math to make anything. So the addition and subtraction and that kind of stuff you probably had very early. But oral traditions come and go. Just because an oral tradition no longer exists today doesn't mean they didn't have it before. Sometimes oral traditions will be kept for generations, and then that culture gets conquered, or something happens to them, or whatever, or people just forget to pass it down, and then it ends, right? So there are probably many oral traditions that existed in the past, and then they just haven't survived until today, All right, we're getting lots of good comments now. Lord Solbeck, Jason is here. Just popped in to say, keep up the great work, Dr. Miano. Dr. Miami, gotta run. I hope you're just, playing cute with my name, Jason. All right. Talking about pyramids, I'm waiting for some alt historian to ask in what order the stones were put in. Ah, yeah, okay. I like the new wave of vase scanning and stuff like that. That is at least an attempt at being empirical instead of just claiming ice cream scoop machines dug out the granite. Yes, Jorgen, and you know what? I got a post about that I'm going to talk about coming up. You get good at working with the materials at hand, says Library Chamber, which in this case is stone. This was the material of choice, so those people got very good at working it, not hard. Yeah, I think so too. Actually, I think mathematics first came from accounting kind of stuff, like keeping records of grain, cows, etc. Yeah, but I mean, aren't you think, like, what about Grandpa telling a story? Like, well, when I was young, we fought in this war or whatever, and then he tells it to his kids, and then they tell it to their kids. Sometimes stories get passed down for several generations, Oh, Constellation Pegasus comes back with another donation. Thank you. I messed up. Mathematics before the leaving of oral traditions, which deny us tracing back in history. Mathematics before the leaving of oral traditions. I'm not sure what you mean. Anyway, okay. Well, let's take a look at another one here. And this is a good one, I thought. People have been asking me about this. You probably know that I do make some videos from time to time about ancient India, and some people get mad at me. The people who get mad at me are the ones that believe that that civilization for the world began in India and then moved out from there, which is not what the historians and archaeologists think. But another part of that is this idea of the Indus Valley civilization, or the Harappan civilization, and what language did they speak? Now, there are two groups of people that are fighting about this. And one group of people is from northern India, mostly, and they say they spoke Sanskrit. And the other group is in southern India mostly, and they say, no, they spoke a Dravidian language. Because they both want to be them, right? That's kind of the idea. I'm oversimplifying, but that's the general idea. Well, recently, there's been a fellow on X who's been posting things. He also has something posted on academia.edu, I think, a paper. It's in process, but his name is Yajnadevam, and he claims to have deciphered the Indus script. And he says, and he's done it basically from approaching it from the cryptography point of view, and he says it's Sanskrit. He's proved that it's Sanskrit. And a lot of people come to my channel saying, oh, they proved it's Sanskrit. Why are you still saying we don't know? Well, I'm saying that because, first of all, he has not published his work in any peer-reviewed academic journal, linguistic or otherwise, and he's not interested in doing so. I actually talked to him about it once, and he doesn't want to. The usual, you hear this from people like this. I don't want to put him into a box, but he used the typical argument like, well, you can't trust academia, So I don't think he's going to, but he goes on podcasts and he has interviews on TV and he goes the rounds and he's really playing it up among the general public, which of course is what the Graham Hancocks of the world do, right? And so a lot of people are believing him and saying, yeah, he has deciphered this script. The fact of the matter is, we don't have enough of the Indus script to decipher it. We don't have any there's one long inscription, it's only a few lines, but we need lengthy inscriptions in order to decipher any language, okay? And now, this post was made this month by Telugu Film File, and he talks about how that Yajnadevam has not deciphered the script, okay? And he's given some reasons, okay? First, posting the first page of an article where they wrote about how this cryptographer deciphered it. But then he talks about the reasons why it isn't very good, okay? Even non-experts can easily falsify Yajnadevam's purported decipherments because he subjectively conflates different Indus signs. And many of his decipherments of single-sign inscriptions, for example, that one breathed, also, born, similar, verily, giving, are spurious. And then this is basically part of, I guess, something that he has written about this, okay, on his own website. And then he says there's a very simple way to falsify his decipherment of the Indus script. His subjective conflation of the different Indus signs makes his decipherment not objective at all. It is easy to compare the images of Indus signs with Exlit's file that has hidden assumptions. I'm not actually sure what that is. So anyway, there is a link here from Telugu Film File where you can go to get the whole explanation. Now, he's not a linguist, I don't think, himself, but he said even non-experts can easily falsify it. So I'm not saying anything right now except you can't decipher the script with what you got. Okay, it's not possible, no matter what method that you use. We just need more long inscriptions in order to do it. But that doesn't stop people from trying, and I don't want to discourage people from trying. But when people go around saying, I did it, I proved it, they're thinking a little bit more of themselves probably than is justified. Yeah. Okay, what else you got to say over here, folks? Oh, the goal has been achieved. Thank you, Jeffrey Jordan. Thomas Bicknell. Okay, let's. What does Thomas say? Thoughts on the built top-down theory regarding the pyramids. Love the channel. Oh, Thomas. Thomas. Maybe revealing too much about ourselves, but he is part of my local Doctor Who meetup group where we get together and watch Doctor Who. That's what he's talking about. But on the built top-down theory regarding the pyramids, I'm not sure which one you're talking about, but it seems to me like I don't know how you would build top-down. Am I missing something obvious? Maybe I am missing something obvious. I don't know. But I didn't realize there was a top-down theory. I will say this, folks. I am working on a video. Will be out later this year. It's going to be a big one. About how long it took for the Great Pyramid, to be built. And it will require talking about each step in the process. Well, I'm not going to take a definite position about exactly where the ramps were and everything, but I just want to get a general idea of how long it took, to make the stone blocks, to move the stone blocks, how long it would take to get them up the sides, all of this kind of stuff, to try to work out how long it would have taken to make the Great Pyramid. I'm actually writing it as a pitch for TV. We'll see if it gets accepted. And the reason I'm doing that is because if it doesn't work out, I'll just put it on my channel. But the reason why I'm doing that is I need some money in order to do some experiments. I want to get actual stone carvers and people like that to do some experiments, making the blocks and moving the blocks and all that kind of stuff, to get an idea of how long each thing would take. So that would be great. If I can't do all of that, maybe I have to fund it myself, then I'll be a little bit more modest in what I try to do. But that's the whole point of that particular video, which I hope you like. Does he mean math before mythological oral traditions? Well, I don't know. But even then, I think mythology might have preceded math. Hey, Doc, someone came to me and mentioned that castist verses in the Rig Veda are later interpolations. How accurate is that claim? I think it's just, this happens with the Bible, too. People don't like something in it. They're like, well, that's a later interpolation. But they don't actually have any proof of it, right? They just want that to be true. And could it be a later interpolation? Sure, it could be. But there's no way to prove it, right? Talking about this topic now in India, a huge political debate war has been waged that the North Indians are trying to impose its language on the South India Dravidian languages. Yeah, that is true. That is true. I don't take a side between North and South. I just take the side of, well, what does the evidence say about what happened in ancient times? I don't know. He might have meant we lost any trace of mathematics from before oral traditions that survives or made it into writing. Okay, that could be. What do you think about comparative mythology? I always thought myths changed too fast to be able to reliably compare them to each other, especially from cultures that aren't closely related. There's a pretty decent scholar by the name of Michael. He does Indology. Oh, I say his name all the time. Michael. Now I'm forgetting his last name. But anyway, he did a book about trying to argue that all the mythologies go back to one mythology, and it didn't go over very well. Most mythologists thought he didn't know what he was talking about. There are some similarities, but there's lots of differences too, and the similarities often can just arise on their own, Just think about simple things like the storm god, okay, being the top god in the pantheon, right? You might say, well, they believe the storm god is god number one, and so do they, and all of this. Now, there actually is some influence in the Mediterranean world on this point, but the storm is as far as nature goes, is one of the most scary things there is in nature, right? The thunderstorms and all of that. So it makes sense that they would think, well, that god, he's the most powerful. He's definitely going to be more powerful than, some of the gods that like make the crops grow or something like that, right? Although the storm god does make the crops grow with the rain, but you get my point. Okay. I'd love to hear what the AI comes up with for the decipherment of a number of these ancient texts. It seems to show a lot of promise, but it will still need humans to evaluate it. Yes, Heather, and it's been making a lot of headway. They've been using it for the Herculaneum scrolls and things like that. So I think you're going to see more and more of it. But right now, even if it does help, humans need to double check it. But it does eliminate a lot of the hard work, Uh-oh. Am I still on? Is my stream still going? I hope my stream's still going. Yeah, I think it's okay. The whole thing just went down. I don't know why. Just disappeared. But it came back up, so hopefully we're all right. Let's see. Brent Lee, right, the inside of the pyramids are mostly undressed stone and rubble for filler. That's right, Brent. Just the outside they made look nice. And, of course, where the passages are. The chambers and things like that. Yeah. All right, wait, I want to show you some more stuff here. All right, so, Jason Wild posted this month about Karahan Tepe, which you might know is in not far from Göbekli Tepe. Okay, and it's from the same general culture. Okay, the Tepeler culture. Proof that civilization existed before the Ice Age and then vanished. Uh-oh, here we go. Mainstream archaeology has pushed the idea that civilization started after the last Ice Age. That before 6,000 years ago, humans were nothing more than primitive hunter-gatherers stumbling around trying to survive. Is that statement true? Is that what mainstream archaeology says? No, it does not. It does not say that at all. Right? This 6,000 years ago figure is referring to the first appearance of urban society, cities, okay, which we, of course, attribute to the Sumerians. But even that is getting a little bit more questioned. We've been finding some pretty large settlements up in Ukraine and some at least one or two cities earlier than Uruk, perhaps. At least one. So, that may adjust somewhat, but still in the general time period, okay? But that's not saying that people were primitive hunter-gatherers stumbling around trying to survive before then. Well, people are always trying to survive even today, but no. It's always been believed that before cities there was a gradual development to get to that point. The cities didn't just pop up out of nowhere, right? So this is actually a misrepresentation. And also, it's been long known, at least for over 100 years, that hunter-gatherers in the Middle East, okay, the Near East, they were settled, right? They actually were settled, and they were building things. So this has been known since the discovery of the Natufian culture, all right? So they weren't just, these primitive savages like some people try to represent them, okay? So he's setting up a straw man here. But sites like Karahan Tepe absolutely destroy that narrative. Now, of course, archaeologists are the ones who found Karahan Tepe, and they are the ones that revise the narrative, but okay. And not just by pushing back the timeline a little bit. This site isn't just another Neolithic settlement. It's evidence that a highly organized advanced civilization existed before the Ice Age, built monumental structures, and then disappeared. Oh, no, wait a second here. Okay. The site is a Neolithic settlement, first of all, because it's a stone technology site. Okay? But yes, it isn't just another one. It has its own differences. And actually, what we found in these cultures in that area, Karahan Tepe, Göbekli Tepe, and many of the other tepes, all right, is more advanced society than we had previously thought existed in that area, absolutely. But pushing back the timeline? No. Doesn't push back the timeline. It might push back the timeline of when stone monuments began to be built in the area, absolutely. But we already knew that there were settlements in the area before this, and people were developing, quite quickly at this time. We knew about agriculture being invented in this area and so forth, right? And of course, you already know that this is not even my area, but prehistorians and all that, they have humanity going way back, all right? But as far as settlements go, the Natufian culture, which is far older than Karahan Tepe, existed already, and we already knew about that, okay? And existed before the Ice Age? No. They didn't exist before the Ice Age. Maybe he meant in the Ice Age or something like that. But, yeah. Karahan Tepe, which is at least 12,000 years old. I'm not sure where he's getting his figures from. Göbekli Tepe goes back almost 12,000 years. That's our oldest carbon date is from almost that far back. Karahan Tepe, I think, was either contemporary or a little bit later. So he's exaggerating here too, right? Yeah, and then he talks about some of the things that are there, which is all good. This is all great stuff. That yes, they did find all this stuff in Karahan Tepe, no doubt about that. But then he says in the third paragraph, here's where it gets even crazier. Karahan Tepe was buried on purpose, just like Göbekli Tepe. It wasn't destroyed in a war or abandoned due to climate change. It was deliberately covered up, stone by stone. That means the people who built it knew something was coming, something so massive and world-changing that they felt the need to preserve their knowledge for the future. Okay, well, what does he get right here, and what does he get wrong? What he gets right is, Karahan Tepe is believed to have been buried on purpose. They're not so sure about Göbekli Tepe. It's looking like maybe not. But did you know that they were burying sites on purpose as a custom for quite some time? Yeah, they were even doing it in the Natufian culture. They did ritual burying of sites after the sites were abandoned. It wasn't to preserve their knowledge for the future. Where he gets that, I don't know. He's just making it up. All right. And if they were preserving knowledge for the future and we dig up Karahan Tepe, how come we don't know what anything means? They didn't preserve the knowledge very well, did they? And also, he's got the time wrong because this Younger Dryas impact event was 1,000 years before this. All right? The flooding that some people propose occurred around at the end of the Younger Dryas period, which we don't have scientific evidence for. That even is still before Göbekli Tepe. All right? So it's too late to bury it, to protect it from destruction. Okay? Already happened. It's done. It's over with. And I think even Graham Hancock admits that. All right? So, yeah. So sometimes you read these things and you're like, oh, wow, this is amazing. A lot of people read this, but they're getting a lot of misinformation. We should do community notes on this, huh? All right. And speaking of Göbekli Tepe, Jimmy Corsetti got upset with History with Kaylee. Do you know that channel? History with Kaylee? Kaylee's has a good channel. Well, one, he was upset that she used his image. But, I don't know if you know this or not, but last year, Jimmy made a big to-do. It was all over social media. He went on Joe Rogan and talked about it. There was a number of things he was saying about Göbekli Tepe. He wasn't happy that excavations there are going so slow. He even claimed that they stopped excavations, which wasn't true. But he was mad that they were at least going too slow. I think he thinks that there's something amazing here that's going to be discovered, and he can't believe archaeologists aren't that excited about it. But anyway, the one part I want to talk about is he originally claimed that the archaeologists planted trees on the site and the trees were destroying the site. Turns out the archaeologists did not plant the trees, and then he later admitted to that. But he was saying that the trees were destroying the site. Now, one thing that he got right was that, okay? He was absolutely right. The trees were, because underneath the trees, there were probably remains, and they probably were, the roots were growing down there and probably affecting things. So he was right about that. All right. So I want to at least mention that because I want to be fair to Jimmy. All right. And there were some archaeologists who said, oh, they plant trees on archaeological sites all the time, and oftentimes it protects them. There's nothing to worry about. All right. Now, that's true at some sites. They'll put plants on top to protect erosion and things like that, and they do it sometimes to protect the site. But that's not what happened at Göbekli Tepe. Okay. And what happened was, just recently, okay, just in the last, I think, couple months, maybe last month or two, archaeologists at Göbekli Tepe started removing the trees. Yeah. And so Jimmy here is saying, I told you so. But he said this to Kaylee. You didn't even have the class to acknowledge the fact that the removal of trees at Göbekli Tepe is only happening because I brought it to the world's attention, which you had originally ridiculed. Way to be. Is this true? Well, let's take a look at an article here. Göbekli Tepe controversy leads to removal of trees. Here's why. Okay. So they talk about the removal of trees. Yes, the archaeologists are removing the trees. And they interviewed the archaeologist in charge. One of the things that was pointed out, by the way, was the landowners, okay, I don't know if they own it anymore, but the original landowners said, our family planted the olive trees before the expropriation between 2004 and 2005. Yeah, they don't own it anymore. But anyway, the trees were planted a long time ago, okay? That's one thing. But the more important thing here is archaeologist Nejmi Karul, head of the Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe excavations, revealed that the trees were planted in recent decades due to landowners seeking expropriation compensation. Oh, I guess when the government took the land, it was worth more if it had trees on it. They could sell it for more. I guess maybe that was what it was about. Okay. But he says the trees must be moved to prevent further damage. We've waited for the right season, and now is the ideal time. So what he's saying here is they've known about it, and they've just been waiting for the right season. So this concern actually, well, it's implied here that it preceded Jimmy's complaints. And then in another, or maybe it wasn't, was it in this one? I think it might be in this one. He says, very explicit, no, it might be this article. Again, he's saying we waited for the right season. No, I think it is in the first article. He says, oh yeah, here it is. The removal of these trees has been under discussion for a long time. This is not a hidden issue. Landowners themselves have acknowledged it. The excavation team has been working to ensure the proper relocation of the trees, and we expect this process to be completed soon. He said that in July, and I think it is now completed or just completed. Okay? But this was before Jimmy had ever said anything about it. So while on the one hand, he certainly did draw attention to it, and the trees were, of course, a concern, but he didn't change history or anything. I'll go so far as to say this, okay? Maybe it put a fire under them, okay? So maybe they were planning on removing the trees. They weren't sure when. It was a big job, you know. Maybe the controversy put a little fire under their butts and got them going faster. That's possible. That's possible. But the point is, they've been planning on doing it for quite some time. Yeah. And although there were archaeologists that said, oh, there's no problem with the trees, and they were wrong about it, the archaeologists that were there did know about it. Yeah. So that's all I wanted to say about that. Okay. All right, let's see what else we got from people over here. Lots of comments. Where do I even begin? How long before influencers destroy archaeological sites to find some evidence of aliens? Or Atlanteans, Salvatore. Well, it's happened a little bit already. So, the authorities have kind of cracked down in some places. I do know that they got really upset in Egypt when some people tried to scrape off some of the Khufu graffiti inside the Great Pyramid to test to see how old the paint was, because they were actually scraping it off, But they said, "Oh, we didn't do any damage." There were other people that were trying to dig around the Sphinx or something, I heard. But yeah, so we got to protect our heritage for sure. Gotta love this. A professor putting on a class on Saturday morning has 199 students voluntarily show up to listen to his thoughts. Yeah, I mean, I'm really surprised. There's 199 here right now. And I didn't even really advertise this, but I'm glad you're here, folks. Maybe you just have nothing better to do on a Saturday, I don't know. If the government tried to steal my farm for pennies on the dollar, I'd try to get as many pennies as I could. The farmers did the right thing. Well, Mandy, I'm not sure about that, but I'm sure they did. Yeah, they wanted to be. They didn't want to. Maybe they didn't even want to lose their land, but they had to. Olive trees are very slow growing. There was no damage. Everything is fine. Yeah, I think they probably have removed them before they could do any significant damage. For sure. All right. The last thing I wanted to share with you was, in case you didn't know about it, I made a post. A really long post, okay? It's got like 20 posts in it. And because I had so much to say, I actually, for the first time, subscribed to X so that I could write longer posts. So I got the basic, and it's all about the vase scan project, because people have been asking me about the vase scan project. Now, I've already made like a couple of videos about it. I'm like, do I really want to make another video when they're not even done, right? They're still doing it. So I'm thinking I should wait to make another video until they actually have something more significant to say. But in the meantime, because people are asking me about it, I made this post, or this series of posts, this thread, okay, about what's wrong with the Uncharted X vase scan project. And a lot of it is about logic, but also the data. So I'm not going to read it all to you or anything like that, but I wanted to make you aware of it and some of the main points, okay? So I have like 18 points, okay? And as you can see, they're involved here. But one point was, at this point, the vase scan team is just measuring vases, right? And that's great. They're collecting data, but they haven't done any scientific analysis, really, okay? Just rudimentary stuff. But they keep saying like, oh, the data speaks for itself. No, it doesn't. You actually need to take that data and now do science with it. So this is one of my main points, okay, which they still haven't done yet. Also, I mentioned their backwards reasoning. In other words, they're starting already with their conclusion. They believe that these vases were made by a lost advanced civilization, okay? And they get mad at me if I say Atlantis, but shorthand for a lost advanced civilization, all right? And then they're just trying to find evidence to support that, which is really not the way you should do it. Now you might say, well, wait a minute. They have a hypothesis and they're testing it, but they're not testing it. They're not testing the hypothesis. They're not doing anything to test the hypothesis. They're only seeking the evidence that supports it, and they're not interested in anything else, right? So that's not testing a hypothesis. This is a minor point, but they've been talking about how there are hundreds of thousands of hard stone vases, and there are not. So that's what this post was about. They refer to vases as precision vases, even if they're not all precise. So, they'll look at the roundness of the vase going around, and they'll look, oh, look how precise it is. But the handles are not precise, the lid's not precise, the inside's not precise. There's a lot that's not precise in the vases. Even the space in between the handles is not precise. But because some of it's precise, they call it a precision vase, which I didn't think is quite honest, okay? The missing context problem is all about how the vases are being taken out of time. Okay, they're not looking at the context. In other words, what were other people in other countries near Egypt doing with stone, right? What do people do with stone later? They're not comparing it to any of that, right? To see, like, is this normal? They're only looking at the hard stone vases, okay? That's it. They're not looking at anything else. And by the way, they're also not looking at the soft stone vases made in the same pile of vases to see if they're precise, right? I think I made that point later, actually. There's no evidence of mass production, right? There's no two vases that are alike. That means they're not produced on an assembly line or anything like that. Why is each one unique? If they have high-tech machines, you think they would be pumping out a bunch of similar or the same kind, right? But no. There's no identical copies, no interchangeable parts, right? I've mentioned this in a video before, but the idea that it's not people who make a precise vase, it's the tool that makes it, and I think that's a fallacy. This one's about how they're not measuring any soft stone vases. And then there's a argument that they make about how the vases are, that granite, for example, granite is made of a bunch of different kinds of stone altogether, and they claim that you cannot get high precision on granite with normal tools because of that, and this debunks that. You're looking at a granite bathtub there from Nero's time. Beautiful, isn't it? Done by hand. Okay. This is about how they say, well, I'm an engineer, or I am a NASA scientist, so I know. They've done this before. They don't explain why they would use high tech to make vases, of all things. Okay. Also, just because it seems improbable that Egyptians could make something, that doesn't automatically mean there was a lost advanced civilization, right? What about other civilizations? What about later time periods? Okay. Also, where is that civilization? Right? If you're going to assign it to a civilization, show us the civilization. This is about their Mott and Bailey arguments that first they'll say, oh yes, this shows that it belonged to a lost advanced civilization, but then when you corner them on that, they're like, well, we're just saying that this doesn't look like the Egyptians could make it. That's all we're saying. But it's kind of, they're doing that. Then when you say, oh, is that all you're saying? Then they'll go back to saying it was the lost advanced civilization. So I don't think that's particularly fair. And then the only real analysis they do is looking for hidden codes and number symbols in the measurements, just like they do with the Great Pyramid. They're doing that with the vases now because that's all they've got to show that there was some advanced science behind it. Precision doesn't equal mystery. This is just about that you can achieve perfect roundness in stone with primitive methods. This is about how they ignore the gradual development of vases, just like they did with the pyramids. And then this talks about their argument that the Egyptians stole the vases. They appropriated the vases from an earlier culture. And then I'm asking, like, well, why didn't anyone else steal them? Why is it only Egyptian vases? Yeah. Anyway, if you're interested in that, you can go to X and check it out. I couldn't put it on Blue Sky because I can't do that long of posts on Blue Sky, and I had too much to say. But anyway, are you sick of hearing me talk now? You probably are. I know stonemasons do it today, all day long with traditional tools. Library chamber, if you've got any good evidence that I could use to show people, send me some links, anything you got. I'd assume that if the vases were easy to make, they'd look a lot more disposable and a lot less artistic. Well, these are the ones that the rich people paid for, right? There are the cheap vases, just like we have in our society, but they also have the expensive ones that took a lot more time. Be interesting to know how much they cost, Yeah. Anyway, we got our goal, everybody. 10 out of 10. So happy. That means that you want to see more ancient history on social media, don't you? All right. Well, then I'm going to do it. Next month, we'll do it. Okay? For the time being, I'm going to do 2 live streams a month. One for the archaeology news and one to talk about funny things people say online. Does that sound okay? Do you like that? I hope so. We'll try it. We'll see how far it goes. But I'm looking at the numbers here. I'm getting the same kind of numbers I get on the archaeology news videos, so seems to be okay. All right, well, that's all I've got for you today, folks. If you didn't catch the whole thing, you can go back and watch the beginning, but I appreciate you tuning in here. Oh, Jack says, tell us about your next trip. Still working out the details, Jack. Oh, Meat Eater 23, thank you for that donation. Really appreciate it. Maybe the vase scan team confused granite with tungsten? I don't know. Maybe that's why they keep saying it's impossible to make it. Keep preaching, Dr. Miano. Thank you, Meat Eater. All right, folks. Well, I've got to go. More work awaits, but I appreciate you tuning in with me today. I love talking with you. Love hearing from you. Sorry I didn't keep up on all the comments, but I'll go back and look at them afterward. So, we'll see you later.